In 1965, a band was formed in Southern California that would change popular music forever. It comprised the vision, innovation, and talent of four men: Jim Morrison on lead vocals, John Densmore on drums, Ray Manzarek on keyboard, and Robbie Krieger on guitar. A year later, in 1966, they had become the house band for the world-famous and iconic nightclub, the Whisky A Go-Go, on Sunset Boulevard. During their time at the Whisky, the band was spotted by the president of Elektra Records, Jack Holzman. After attending several performances, he was interested in their unique and captivating sound. He signed the band to Elektra Records and gave them the task of creating a debut album. The album was recorded at Sunset Sound Studios in Hollywood in about a week. The sessions consisted of Morrison on vocals, Densmore on drums, Manzarek on keyboard and some other instruments, Krieger on guitar and bass, and session bassist Larry Knechtel. The album was produced under Paul Rothchild and audio engineer Bruce Botnick. The music was recorded onto a 4-track tape machine. The primary rhythm section of the drums and the bass were on one tape, the guitar and organ were on another, the vocals were on the third, and the fourth was used for various overdubs. The album was mixed and finalized in October of 1966, and Elektra Records marketed the album in unique, innovative ways. For instance, billboards were used to promote the album, the first time this was ever done for any popular music act. The album went on to become a huge success in the US, peaking at number 2 on the music charts, only kept from number 1 by Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and the biggest single from the album reached number 1. Since then, the album has been added to the National Recording Registry of the Library of Congress in 2015 and become known as one of the most enduring and beloved albums of all time. So, for the band's 60th anniversary, let's dive deep into the mythos, the magic, and the music of The Doors. This is We begin with a bona fide classic, Break On Through to the Other Side. The song was released as the band's first single and lead single for the album. It peaked at number 104 on Cashbox and 126 on the Billboard charts. Despite the comparatively weaker performance of the single, it has since become one of the group's most well-known and adored songs. We start with a unique drum rhythm for rock music, then a prominent organ, then a supplementary guitar, then a voice like no other. Let's talk about each individual element. The drum pattern is heavily influenced by a Brazilian style of music called bossa nova, creating a pattern of snare clicks, consistent cymbal hits, and a thumping kick drum. The keyboard part is played on a Vox Continental organ paired with a Fender Rhodes keyboard bass. Manzarek would primarily play the keyboard bass with the left hand and the organ with his right, acting as both the melody instrument and the rhythm instrument. In Ray Manzarek's autobiography, he stated that his keyboard part for Break On Through was inspired by American saxophonist Stan Getz and Brazilian guitarist João Gilberto's bossa nova album Getz Gilberto. The Brazilian bossa nova movement made its way over to America in 1964 with chart-topping songs like The Girl from Ipanema. This had inspired both Densmore and Manzarek, and it can be seen in their contributions to this song. Both of their parts also have a remarkable resemblance to Ray Charles's What Did I Say? The guitar part for the song comprises 3 main parts: an accompaniment to the keyboard melody, 4 chord hits right before the chorus, and a powerful guitar melody in the chorus. Producer Rothchild requested that Krieger not use guitar effects on the album, especially the wah-wah pedal, because he believed they were overused. Fortunately, the studio had an echo chamber that gave the guitar a signature sound. Krieger said that the guitar riff was inspired by American blues performer Paul Butterfield's version of Elmore James's Shake Your Money Maker. Lastly, the vocals of the song show an animalistic and raw delivery that was distinct in the music world of 1967. When all of these musical elements combine, they create an extraordinarily unique and musically daring album opener with touches of mambo, bossa nova, psychedelic rock, and blues. The lyrics of the song were written by Jim Morrison, who wrote most of the original material on the album. Morrison had held a fascination in poetry and wrote his own, making him the lead songwriter of the band. The opening verse sets the tone for the album. You know the day destroys the night. Night divides the day. You try to run, you try to hide. Break on through to the other side. There are innumerable interpretations from this. Perhaps it is the music of the album breaking through the boundaries of genres and creating something wholly new, or someone evolving into a new state of consciousness. No matter the meaning, the emotion and intent are clearly presented. The lyrics reflect the thin line of passion between love and destruction. They are emotions and intent so powerful that one could suddenly transform into the other. We can see this balance in the second and third verses. We chased our pleasures here, dug our treasures there, but can you still recall the time we cried? And, I found an island in your arms, a country in your eyes, arms that chain us, eyes that lie. Each verse tips the balance towards one side and then quickly flips towards the other. With the chorus delivering a command, the audience is encouraged to feel this passion and break conventions. From the breakneck speed of Break On Through, we transition into the driving funk of Soul Kitchen. Similar to the opener, this song begins with one musical element and then builds over time until all elements are presented. This style of introduction is common throughout the album and demonstrated well on this song. The instruments are added until the full rhythm is built, and this rhythm section displays expert interplay between Manzarek's keyboard, Krieger's guitar, and the bass. There is a discrepancy between the true identity of the bassist on the song. Engineer Bruce Botnick recalls that session bassist Larry Knechtel overdubbed a bass part onto the song after it was recorded. However, Krieger says that he played the bass. No matter the identity of the bassist, the bass was added to the song to add more punch to Manzarek's keyboard bass. Krieger cited the influence of James Brown on the song, and his guitar riff was meant to emulate a horn section. The guitar riff sounds comparable to the horn section on Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. Soul Kitchen's instrumentation takes heavy inspiration from James Brown's style, and if the song is slightly sped up, then it is even more apparent. If you want to see this effect, go to the YouTube upload of Soul Kitchen and increase the speed to 1.25. The result is interesting. At the end of the chorus, there is an excellent tension build-up that initially results in a modest return to the next verse. However, after the second chorus, the tension builds and then releases into a ripping guitar and keyboard solo. Morrison's vocal performance on this song is similarly stunning to the opener, and his lyrics become a bit more concrete in their imagery. This can be seen in the first verse. Well, the clock says it's time to close now. I guess I'd better go now. I'd really like to stay here all night. As the verse continues, the imagery becomes more vivid and believable. The cars crawl past all stuffed with eyes. Streetlights share their hollow glow. Your brain seems bruised with numb surprise. Still one place to go. These lines not only give you context for the story, but paint pictures in your mind of the story Morrison is telling. The song was written in the summer of 1965 as a tribute to the soul food restaurant Olivia's in Venice Beach, a frequent place Morrison visited. He often stayed late at the restaurant, and the staff would have to kick him out. The chorus of the song serves as a pleading response to this. Let me sleep all night in your soul kitchen, warm my mind near your gentle stove. Turn me out and I'll wander, baby, stumbling in the neon groves. Morrison petitions the restaurant like a man petitions his dissatisfied spouse. He begs for a shelter from the gloomy world that lies beyond. The next verse describes what the narrator will do next. While your fingers weave quick minarets, speak in secret alphabets, I light another cigarette, learn to forget. With this person speaking in an unidentifiable way towards the narrator, he withdraws into melancholy. The surrounding context around the verse prompts the conclusion that the narrator is ignoring someone who is unhappy with him. Despite this, he still pleads in another chorus and a reintroduced first verse. I really want to stay here all night. All night. All night. An atmospheric build-up begins the Crystal Ship. After the first verse, a new instrument is incorporated into the sound, a piano. Manzarek plays both the organ and piano on this song, and the piano brings a melancholy that is most prominent in the verses and instrumental break. The instrumentation creates a dramatic and theatrical performance that verges on Baroque. The longing sorrow of the music combines wonderfully with the lyrics. They were written by Morrison as a love song to his girlfriend Mary Werbelow, shortly following the ending of their relationship. Described as a goodbye love song by Densmore, the lyrics tell of a loved one slipping away. The writing was heavily inspired by a favorite poet of Morrison's, William Blake. While the title to many may seem to be a reference to drugs, it was based on Blake's poem The Crystal Cabinet. The poem tells of a dreamlike encounter where the narrator is captured by a maiden and trapped inside a crystalline cabinet. The surreal storytelling of the poem is reflected in the Crystal Ship. The first verse shows that the narrator still yearns for his love as she leaves. Before you slip into unconsciousness, I'd like to have another kiss. Another flashing chance at bliss. Another kiss. There are many different interpretations that could be drawn from this. The narrator and his love could be breaking up. She could be disappearing from his mind. She could be passing away. She could be slipping into a dreamlike sleep. The constant among these ideas is that she is leaving the narrator's mind. A question still remains. What is the Crystal Ship? I believe the answer can be found by returning to the Crystal Cabinet. In the poem, the narrator is trapped in the crystal cabinet and taken through a transformative experience. The poem begins with this verse. The maiden caught me in the wild, where I was dancing merrily. She put me into her cabinet and locked me up with a golden key. The narrator, displaying an innocence, is taken away and shut up in a cabinet by a maiden. He is then taken through a transformative experience where he views a reflection of England and experiences the passion of love. The next two verses follow. I strove to seize the inmost form with ardor fierce and hands of flame, but burst the crystal cabinet and like a sweeping babe became. A weeping babe upon the wild, and weeping woman pale reclined, and in the outward air again I filled with woes the passing wind. The narrator breaks free from the cabinet and becomes a morose infant. It is interesting to note that the crystal cabinet may be an allegory for birth, with the narrator bursting from the cabinet as a baby in front of a reclining pale woman. Viewing the poem in this way, the crystal cabinet was a spiritual womb, a place in between birth and what comes before. At the end of the crystal ship, Morrison sings, "The crystal ship is being filled. 1,000 girls, 1,000 thrills, 1,000,000 ways to spend your time. When we get back, I'll drop a line." Morrison is boarding a crystal vessel that will take him into another realm. Both Morrison and the narrator of the crystal cabinet are inside crystal vessels traveling the space between life and what lies beyond. The introduction of this concept is crucial not only to the album, but the musical identity of the Doors' career and Morrison's poetry. They are the ferrymen through the river of time, our cosmic guides through space, the doorway out of reality. Out of the heavy cloud of the crystal ship comes the stylish strut of 20th Century Fox. The rhythm section of the verses captures a playful rhythm, while the chorus features a powerful stomping rhythm. This stomp is accompanied by actual stomping. Producer Paul Rothchild, prior to recording this album, recorded a flamenco record, and added marching steps. For 20th Century Fox, he had the band walk on wooden planks inside the studio. This can be heard prominently during the chorus. The combination of the stylish rhythm and walking sounds conjure the image of a trendy LA sidewalk. When paired with the relevant lyrics, the song creates a picture in your mind. The lyrics mirror the youth culture and allure of Los Angeles by focusing on one woman. The first verse describes her. Well, she's fashionably lean and she's fashionably late. She'll never wreck a scene, she'll never break a date. But she's no drag, just watch the way she walks. Then the chorus dubs her a 20th Century Fox, the model of contemporary fashion and attitude. The second verse reads as, she's the queen of cool, and she's the lady who waits. Since her mind left school, it never hesitates. She won't waste time on elementary talk. She is shown as a model of modern independence, the untouchable character that roams the streets of LA by day. And by night? We are plunged into the first of two cover songs on the album, Alabama Song, or Whisky Bar. The song was first shown to the group by Ray Manzarek in 1966, and it would become a staple of their live performances. The song was originally written in 1925 as a poem by German playwright Bertolt Brecht. Then music was composed for it in 1927 by German composer Kurt Weill. It was included in Weill's political satirical opera Rise and Fall of the City of Mahogany. The Alabama Song's original composition was highly unconventional for theater of the time. It incorporated the musical styles of circus and cabaret music, which were seen as lower-class diversions. The Doors version faithfully adapts the musical style while recomposing most of the song. Aspects of the song were enhanced, such as the creepy carnival atmosphere. This is achieved through an instrument played by Manzarek called a marxophone. Recommended by Paul Rothchild, it's a fretless zither that makes sound with bouncing metal hammers. The addition of this instrument gives the song a strange circus jangle. The bounce of the organ and keyboard rhythm almost resemble a circus calliope, and the organ reintroduction before the chorus acts as a freaky interlude. The combination of avant-garde, carnival, and psychedelic elements creates a twisted and sinister mood. If the previous song, 20th Century Fox, was a bustling sidewalk full of young people in daylight, then Alabama Song is the same sidewalk at night, with no one around and a lonely drifter staggering towards the next whiskey bar. To explain the lyrics of the song, it is necessary to look at the opera where it is found. The opera concerned the fictional city of Mahogany, rife with excess and hedonism. By the end of the story, the city crumbles under the weight of its own corruption and indulgence. The Alabama Song is performed early in the play, and it is sung from the perspective of female prostitutes. They're continually seeking out vices in a vicious cycle. Reinterpreted by the Doors, the lyrics carry their meaning over to their version of the song. Morrison provides a believable delivery of the lyrics, as he was heavily partaking of vices, and especially alcohol. And in a full circle kind of way, Morrison had been partially living the life that was satirized in the original Mahogany opera. However, the song reflects a sense of self-awareness that presents this lifestyle as it is. The sinister musical undertone that underscores the lyrics thematically shows that the Doors were not blind to the evils that were below the surface of a life of excess. What songs come to mind when you hear this phrase? The 1960s. Possibly I'm a Believer? I Want to Hold Your Hand? I Can't Get No Satisfaction? These and many more would accurately fit the prompt, but to me, one song comes to mind above all others. In my view, no song wholly demonstrates the decade of the 60s in music like Light My Fire. It represents the social attitude, musical experimentation, and retrospective iconography of the decade. In the summer of 1967, a single version edited to under half the original runtime reached number 1 on the Billboard charts and stayed for 3 weeks. The success of the single yielded an unforgettable performance on The Ed Sullivan Show. The famous controversies from the show revolved around a line intended to be censored. During the pre-show rehearsal, the band was instructed to replace the line, "Girl, we couldn't get much higher," with "Girl, we couldn't get much better." The song was performed this way during rehearsal, but during the live broadcast, Morrison kept the original lyric. Despite the interpretation of the crew behind The Ed Sullivan Show, Morrison explained that the use of the word was not a reference to drugs, but rather literal. Morrison would later explain in an interview that the change in lines was not a defiant protest of censorship, but rather an accident caused by anxiety. This led Morrison to perform the song like he had done many times before, without remembering to change the line. The idea that Morrison lunged towards the camera and shouted the word "higher" to anger the showrunners was an invention of Oliver Stone's The Doors film from 1991. Due to copyright, I cannot show a comparison of the real Ed Sullivan performance versus the film's dramatization, but I will link the 2 videos in the description. They are easily accessible and will clear up any confusion around what really happened. Now let's look at what makes Light My Fire so special. The song originated in early 1966, primarily composed by Robbie Krieger. He said the melody of the song was inspired by the song Hey Joe by the Los Angeles band The Leaves, and the lyrics were inspired by the Rolling Stones song Play With Fire. John Densmore would suggest that the song have a Latin rhythm, and also that the song should start with a single snare hit. Both suggestions were implemented. The most prominent and iconic musical element of the song is the intricate organ melody composed by Ray Manzarek. The impressive composition was inspired by legendary German composer Johann Sebastian Bach. After 2 verses and 2 choruses, the band breaks out into a lengthy improvisation that was inspired by an artist the band admired, jazz legend John Coltrane. The solo features incredible guitar and keyboard solos that weave together into an experimental tapestry. At the end of the solo, the band builds up and crashes into a reintroduction of the keyboard melody and Morrison's vocals. For the first time on the album, an original composition from the band features lyrics not by Morrison, but primarily by Robbie Krieger. Morrison encouraged the other members to write, and when Krieger showed interest, Morrison suggested that he write about something universal. The song begins with an iconic verse and chorus. "You know that it would be untrue. You know that I would be a liar. If I was to say to you, girl, we couldn't get much higher. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire." The narrator commands his love to ignite his soul, to engulf the 2 of them in the flames of passion. And then the second verse, written by Morrison, says, "The time to hesitate is through. No time to wallow in the mire. Try now, we can only lose, and our love become a funeral pyre." The narrator tells his love that there is no turning back, that the only way to go forward is to embrace their blazing fervor. Side 1 magnificently ends with an epic song combining psychedelic rock, blues, jazz, a Latin rhythm, and classical music. In the closing seconds of the first half of the record, beyond all doubt, a classic was born. We begin side 2 with a hard-rocking blues number, Backdoor Man. The song was originally written by blues legend Willie Dixon and first recorded by blues legend Howlin' Wolf in 1960. Robbie Krieger introduced the song to the band through an adaptation by John Hammond Jr. from his 1964 album Big City Blues. This was one of the many blues cover songs that the band performed during their live shows, but certainly an excellent pick for the album. Their version of the song takes the classic Chicago blues sound of the original and injects it with a driving rhythm section, catchy keyboard riff, and an animalistic singing performance. The compositional style reflects both psychedelic blues and what would later become known as hard rock. Jim Morrison would later mention his appreciation of the blues. "I like singing blues. These free, long blues trips where there's no specific beginning or end. It just gets into a groove, and I can just keep making up things, and everybody's soloing. I like that kind of song rather than just a song. You know, just starting on a blues and just seeing where it takes us." One of the essential musical roots of the Doors as a band is the blues, and they would continue to return to it throughout their discography, but most effectively on Morrison Hotel and LA Woman. And in 1969, Morrison would summarize the reason why the blues is so fundamental. I think in this country we keep returning to blues and country because there are two indigenous musical forms. Backdoor Man is followed by the feel-good rock energy of I Looked at You. This and Take It As It Comes were the first two songs recorded for the final album. The song's rhythm has an impulsive attitude that brings the lyrics to life. The song is about an inevitable love at first sight. The two verses simply say, I looked at you, you looked at me. I smiled at you, you smiled at me. I walked with you, you walked with me. I talked to you, you talked to me. A very simple exchange, but the chorus says, and we're on our way. No, we can't turn back, babe. Yeah, we're on our way, and we can't turn back, 'cause it's too late. This small exchange quickly escalates into an inescapable romance. After a well-executed fake-out ending, we are reminded of the chorus once more, telling us that only one glance from the narrator began a road down an emotional highway with no turning back. Further down the highway, we arrive at End of the Night. The song was the B-side to the band's lead single, Break On Through. It predates the recording of the album by over a year, since it was written by Morrison early into the band's career, even before Robbie Krieger joined as guitarist. It was initially recorded in 1965 in an attempt to land a recording deal with Aura Records. The song was rejected, but was re-recorded for this album. Besides the finale, this song presents the most deeply layered atmosphere on the album, and Manzarek's radiating organ create a murky twilight atmosphere. The sluggish rhythm of the song feels sleepless, and the vocal and instrumental delivery sound like they are being performed by insomniacs. The title of the song was from the 1932 French novel Journey to the End of the Night by Louis Ferdinand Céline. When thinking about the title, we can observe that the end of the night is when the sun begins to rise. The music and lyrics of the song take place in the liminal space between the empty night and the coming sunrise. The opening verse, Take the Highway to the End of the Night, brings to mind driving on a seemingly endless desert highway with blinking street lamps and a flattened horizon. The title of the song is continually sung in an almost droning fashion, almost as if Morrison is the driver singing the song trying to stay awake. The second line, Take a Journey to the Bright Midnight, starts to bring the language of the first verse into a more metaphysical context, including a juxtaposition with the bright midnight. Then the song breaks out into a climax with the line, Realms of Bliss, Realms of Light. As the lyrics greet the blinding light of the rising sun, the music goes from murky and gloomy to intense and emotional. Then there's the next line, Some are born to sweet delight, some are born to endless night. This line was from William Blake's poem Auguries of Innocence, written in 1803 and published in 1863. An augury is a vision of the future, and the title suggests that the poem is about visions of the future from the perspective of an innocent individual. To understand the meaning of the poem, let's look at some key passages. The first reads as, To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. This beautiful set of lines explains the fundamental belief that underscores the poem. God's vision and divinity exist in all things, even the littlest. Based on this belief, the author shows support for the lowest creatures who are mistreated. This can be seen in the lines following the first passage. A robin redbreast in a cage puts all heaven in a rage. A dove house filled with doves and pigeons shudders hell through all its regions. A dog starved at his master's gate predicts the ruin of the state. A horse misused upon the road calls to heaven for human blood. Written in a time when animal cruelty prevention was not taken seriously, Blake's words carry even more integrity and truth. As the poem goes on, it starts to bring this theme to human society. The poem lists the conditions and lowest peoples that create unequal opportunities. The whore and gambler, by the state licensed, build that nation's fate. The harlot's cry from street to street shall weave old England's winding sheet. The winners shout, the losers curse, dance before dead England's hearse. Every night and every morn, some to misery are born. Every morn and every night, some are born to sweet delight. Some are born to sweet delight. Some are born to endless night. The sins of humanity are shown to guarantee unequal suffering, but there is hope to be discovered in the light of faith. This hope is described in the next passage. We are led to believe a lie when we see not through the eye, which was born in a night to perish in a night, when the soul slept in beams of light. God appears and God is light to those poor souls who dwell in night, but does a human form display to those who dwell in realms of day. When we open our hearts as well as our eyes, we can escape this endless night and journey towards sweet delight. This journey is portrayed wondrously in End of the Night. The song begins in the empty void of the pool of night, and then journeys towards the realms of bliss and realms of light. End of the Night shepherds its listener on this journey of truth and redemption. As one last rocker before we enter another world, we have Take It As It Comes. The song was inspired by the words of the extremely influential Indian guru Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. All 4 members of the band had attended workshops taught by him at one point, with Morrison attending on a recommendation from the other members. The song breaks into a burst of energy in the chorus, with a fantastic organ solo once again, inspired by Johann Sebastian Bach. The title of the song came from Morrison's observations from the Maharishi's meditation classes, specifically a phrase that he would often use, take it easy, take it as it comes. The first verse lists universal actions, time to live, time to lie, time to laugh, time to die. Then the chorus breaks through, take it easy baby, take it as it comes, don't move too fast, and you want your love to last, oh you've been moving much too fast. The narrator tells the listener that, in between these huge and small actions, we must accept life for what it is and slow down. The later verses further explain this, and this song asking us to slow down and be more conscientious perfectly prepares us for the end. A calm meditative guitar introduces the song. Notably, it has an Eastern influence, and this is carried throughout the composition of the entire song. With the prior number introducing Indian philosophy to the album, the end, musically, dives deeper into it. Krieger's open guitar tuning was a technique learned from Indian classical music legend Ravi Shankar's music lessons at the Kinara School of Music in Los Angeles. The style of guitar playing mimics the sound of a sitar. Manzarek's keyboard gives the song a drone that is standard in Indian classical music. The song was recorded live with no overdubs, and replaced Indian Summer, another song recorded during these sessions, as the end of the album. Indian Summer would later be re-recorded and released on Morrison Hotel. This Indian musical influence creates an Eastern atmosphere, which combines with the Eastern philosophical influence of the lyrics. Before we wade into the poetry of the end, we should establish a framework to view the song in. And who better to provide this framework than Jim Morrison himself? In the book Break On Through, The Life and Death of Jim Morrison, Morrison is quoted as stating that the end is about 3 things: sex, death, and travel. Keep this in mind as we go forward. Morrison initially wrote the lyrics as a breakup song, but over time, with many additions and changes, it transformed into a monolith of ancient myth, historical tragedy, and a journey into the heart of mortality. Morrison enters the song with the first chorus and verse. This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend, the end. Of our elaborate plans, the end. Of everything that stands, the end. No safety or surprise, the end. I'll never look into your eyes again. These lyrics act as a farewell to a close friend. These lyrics, especially the chorus, could be referring to this close friend, or he could be referring to the end, personified. If taken this way, then the narrator is in conversation with this supposed end. Morrison would later confirm this perspective. Sometimes the pain is too much to examine, or even tolerate. That doesn't make it evil, though, or necessarily dangerous. But people fear death even more than pain. It's strange that they fear death. Life hurts a lot more than death. At the point of death, the pain is over. Yeah, I guess it is a friend. When entering the second verse, things begin to change. Can you picture what will be, so limitless and free, desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land? These lines are starting to breach the physical barrier of the first verse. We are now teetering on the edge of the known world, and then, verse 3, lost in a Roman wilderness of pain, and all the children are insane. All the children are insane, waiting for the summer rain. We are suddenly transported to another land with immediate mysteries, lost, insane, waiting. Then the fourth verse delivers us some more concrete images. There's danger on the edge of town. Ride the King's Highway, baby. Weird scenes inside the gold mine. Ride the highway west, baby. Ride the snake. Ride the snake. To the ancient lake, baby. The snake, he's long, 7 miles. Ride the snake. He's old, and his skin is cold. The West is the best. The West is the best. Get here, and we'll do the rest. The blue bus is calling us. The blue bus is calling us. Driver, where are you taking us? we experience images of the famous American West of centuries past, involving sprawling highways and crooked gold mines. These images evoke the spirit of America's westward expansion and represent a journey into the untamed wilderness, with an unknown destination at the end of its path. We also hear of a calling blue bus. In a literal sense, the blue bus most likely is a reference to the Big Blue Bus Transit Agency, which was known for its uniquely colored buses. These buses are synonymous with Santa Monica, California, which is just outside of Los Angeles in Sunset Boulevard, where the Doors performed many a night at the Whisky A Go-Go. The blue bus, figuratively, represents a vessel that is carrying the narrator to an unknown destination. The continuous mention of riding the snake serves two purposes. The lines describing the snake as old, with cold skin and an improbable length, serve as a figurative depiction of the sprawling highway, the King's Highway, the crawling king snake's highway. The snake also is of spiritual significance. The snake has numerous meanings in religions and mythologies spanning the world. In ancient Egypt and Greece, snakes represented rejuvenation and rebirth from their ability to shed their skin. In Christianity, snakes are associated with original sin and evil, as a serpent convinced Eve to eat the forbidden fruit. In various religions around the world, the snake is represented as the Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail. This cyclical symbol represented eternity. From these various significances, we can see the purpose of the snake in this song. The snake represents rebirth, evil, and eternity. These three ideas work in parallel with the three central ideas of the song: sex, death, and travel. But then, verse 5 rears its head. The killer awoke before dawn. He put his boots on. He took a face from the ancient gallery and he walked on down the hall. He went into the room where his sister lived. And then he paid a visit to his brother, and then he walked on down the hall. And he came to a door, and he looked inside. Father, yes, son, I want to kill you. Mother, I want to... This verse in its entirety was improvised live on stage during a show on August 21, 1966, as a spoken word segment. The delivery of this verse is one of the most impressive moments of theatricality in all of 1960s popular music. Morrison expertly holds a lengthy suspense in between each line, and this suspense increases until the end of the verse, where the band crashes into a wild climax. This musical and vocal suspense serves to heighten the impact of this part of the story. A killer is stalking the halls of a place where his family lives, visiting each member until he arrives at the master bedroom. This is where the story evokes the famous Greek drama Oedipus Rex. In the original story, an oracle tells Oedipus that he will kill his father and marry his mother. With this information, he flees from his home in Corinth. Later in life, he saves the city of Thebes and marries the queen. He has 4 children. After a conflict at a crossroads, Oedipus unknowingly kills his father, the man in the other chariot. There is a lot more to the story, but these are the events that created the famous central idea. The Oedipal section of the end may initially seem unconnected to the prior speak of mortality, but when examining the end of the verse, we can connect it to the prior verses. The two actions, killing the father and having sex with the mother, are destroying life and creating it. Or, they are destroying the past and creating the future. Ray Manzarek would later describe the significance and influence of the Oedipal verse. He was giving voice in a rock and roll setting to the Oedipus complex, at the time a widely discussed tendency in Freudian psychology. He wasn't saying he wanted to do that to his own mom and dad. He was reenacting a bit of Greek drama. It was theater. On the same August 21st show that the first verse was created, it ended with Morrison spinning around manically and the band exploding. After this, the lyrics devolve into insane ramblings repeating the actions of the Oedipal verse. And as the band regains composure, the song transitions back into the opening chorus and verse. With the prior discussions on eternity and endless cycles, it is fitting for the song to return to where it began. The music throughout the song creates an audio experience that sounds like you are traveling on a journey through time, between the endless catacombs and deep into the boundless ocean of the universe. Due to the universality of the lyrics, the song seems to mean something unique to every individual who hears it. Jim Morrison was later quoted as sharing this sentiment. "Every time I hear the end, it means something else to me. It started out as a simple goodbye song, probably just to a girl, but I see how it could be a goodbye to a kind of childhood. I really don't know. I think it's sufficiently complex and universal in its imagery that it could be almost anything you want it to be." The daring music, genius poetry, ubiquity, and spiritual generality of the end makes it, in my mind, one of the greatest accomplishments in popular music. The name of The Doors was derived from the autobiographical book The Doors of Perception by English writer and philosopher Aldous Huxley. The title of the book was derived from another source, once again, William Blake. A line from one of his poems reads as follows: "If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite." The Doors, both musically and lyrically, were the doorway into something unseen in the music world. But as for the doorway into the album, Jim Morrison famously disliked the album cover. He believed the image of himself to be far too oppressive over the other three members of the band. Despite Morrison's fair criticism, the picture has become legendary in the field of album covers, and I believe it to be an excellent visual representation of and companion to the album. The picture introduces the iconic logo of the band that they kept throughout their career. The image has a dark, ethereal quality, almost like the band is being swallowed by a void. Morrison's intense expression creates a shadow over the band, representing the omnipresence of his deeply meaningful poetry and his magnetic performance style throughout the album. The Doors' debut seamlessly showcases psychedelic rock, blues, bossa nova, jazz, classical music, funk, German theater music, samba, Baroque music, Greek theater, and Indian classical music. Due to both the wild genre-bending musical experimentation and spiritually profound poetry, The Doors has long stood as not only the greatest debut album, but one of the greatest albums of all time.